Okay, this is part two of the slippery noodle. This is the spiritual history of the building. So all this colorful history of the slippery noodle leads to lots of spiritual entities existing in this place that have met their demise unexpectedly, refused to basically admit to themselves of how they died. Uh, Probably the most seen and heard entity, and we're talking over 100 people, have heard and seen a black male entity in the basement of this building, always just in the basement. He's known as a caretaker because he's wearing coveralls, always appears to be working, and always is, if he's heard, he's always singing. Sometimes he's not heard, sometimes he's just seen, sometimes he's just heard and not seen, and sometimes, of course, both. But definitely a strong presence within this building, and by far the most interesting. You see, he has given us clues to the time period he lived, why he is here, and a little bit about his demise. You see, I mentioned that this was a way station for the Underground Railroad. Well, the clues are given basically by what you hear. You never hear this entity speak. He's always singing. Now, when things are seen or heard from the other side, a lot of times they're not clear, they're a little bit jarbled, a little bit muted maybe. And this is the case with this entity. Now, he sings in a very rich baritone voice, but you can't tell a lot of what is actually being sang. But there is one word that is always very clear, and that word is Canada. So now we have to go back and do a little history lesson here. You see, the spirituals that are sang, or slave songs, if you will, weren't really songs. They were coded messages, or in other words, verbal maps, trying to communicate secretly from one slave to the next of directions of how to escape to the north. So that indicates that this entity was a former slave that knew these spirituals. Well, the fact that he's working in the basement of this building in coveralls indicates that he probably headed up north himself on the Underground Railroad, learned these songs, felt safe, basically got a job working at the Slippery Noodle in the basement, where he eventually must have met his demise. So to this day, he sings in the building as he works. Now, there's been so many witnesses to him and heard him so many times in this rich baritone voice that he has become known as Barry, after the very famous Barry White, who was a very deep voice, rich singer, usually singing romantic songs, as a matter of fact. So that's Barry. Now, he's not the only entity known to be in the basement, but by far the most strong presence. But people that are very acute spiritually hear voices in the basement, usually in both ears at the same time, male voices, female voices, always sounding very unhappy, very distressed. And words like, I'm cold, and help me. So it's a very unhappy place, the basement of this building. You see, it's been known that there are several slaves' bodies that met their end in this area that were born, or that were buried here on the premises of the Slippery Noodle, even in the basement itself. When you take pictures in the basement, orbs can often be seen. And orbs are basically balls of light that are unexplained on film, that are said to be the presence of a spirit in that area at the time, captured on film. The second floor of this building, which was the brothel, also its history would lead itself to spiritual entities, and it does. Traveling to the second floor of this building, you can walk through areas that are cold spots, and that's another common type of entity from the other side, is just a cold area. Now, you can walk through the cold spot. It's not always in the same place, not always present at all, or sometimes the cold seems to travel through you when you're on the second floor. People have been reported of feeling like they're being touched, or have unexplained noises, voices, tapping, footsteps, things of that nature. It's not as active as the basement, but definitely there's been entities seen there as well. A figure that appears to be a cowboy, which would lend itself to be a potential customer of the brothel that met his demise unexpectedly. Also, a woman has been seen on several occasions dressed in a way to appear to be a prostitute. Probably again met her demise very unexpectedly and refuses to leave this building. So there's lots of local paranormal activity in Indianapolis. This isn't even one of the top 5, so there's plenty of places to show you. This is just an indication. The Circle City Paranormal Club has caught 3 EVPs in this building. An EVP is an electronic voice phenomenon. Now those are either video or audio recordings of the audio, of course, of the video recording, where you don't hear anything when you're recording it, but when you play it back, you hear something, whether it's a voice or just a tapping, sometimes a voice in distress. So 3 of those have been caught. You can Google search those and listen to those for yourself. Psychic was brought in and communicated with an entity that says she was the madam of this brothel at one time. So lots of colorful history, and like I said, this isn't even one of the most haunted places in Indianapolis. So let's get going. We've got plenty more to show you.